I'm standing next to a legend, okay?
This guy should not be allowed to talk about fighting.
I disagree.
Certainly don't claim to be the aficionado you are or anybody else covering this sport, but excuse me.
Now, I was upset at Stephen A. Smith.
Joe Rogan, if you need me, you know where to find me.
Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith are arguably the largest personalities in all of sports. Joe Rogan with the UFC and the biggest podcast in the world, and Stephen A. Smith is the highest paid commentator at ESPN and is very respected when it comes to football and basketball. Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith are both very opinionated people, and that has got them to their success today. So what happens when you put these two together? Well, by no surprise, you get a disagreement. This is when Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith got into a public dispute. So this all started with Conor McGregor versus Donald Cerrone at UFC 246. It was January 18th of 2020, and Stephen A. was named on ESPN's broadcast team to cover the fight. So if you didn't already know, MMA fans aren't the biggest fan of Stephen A. covering the sport, so they weren't really happy about this announcement. And well, Stephen A. didn't let those people down. After Conor McGregor stopped Donald Cerrone in the first round in only 40 seconds, Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith were expected to do ESPN's post-fight coverage together.
20 seconds.
Stephen, stunning? Is that even, can you say from Conor McGregor it's a stunning win?
Listen, I'm shocked and disappointed. I thought Conor McGregor would win this. I thought he would take him out in 2 rounds.
As Stephen A. breaks down the fight, watch how Joe Rogan tries to hear him out. Even though he disagrees with him, he doesn't interrupt him once.
Cowboy Cerrone's been knocked out 6 times in his career, the last 2 times, so I knew he had a questionable jaw, so I expected it to end in round 2. I didn't expect it to end in 40 seconds, or as you just said, Joe Rogan, the first 15 seconds was like shadow fighting, for crying out loud.
After Stephen A.'s rant, Joe doesn't really address anything he says, and he gives his explanation of how he thinks the fight actually played out. Now, it wasn't long until Joe Rogan and Stephen A. Smith came to a disagreement. Once again, both of these guys are very opinionated people, and they both debate people regularly, so this was almost destined to happen. As Joe Rogan is talking, Stephen A. interrupts Joe and says something that just shows he doesn't know anything about the sport, and he shouldn't be here covering one of the biggest fights of the year.
We haven't learned a damn thing about Conor McGregor based off of this fight.
Really?
Because who were you? Listen, the man did not get hit other than 1 kick to the arm. That's it. I mean, he didn't. I have gotten hit that much in the last week.
Now, Stephen A. pretty much goes on to say, because the fight ended so quickly, we didn't get to see if Conor McGregor has improved from his last fight. And he also called Donald Cerrone a quitter, who, if you don't already know, is a veteran of the UFC.
Cowboy Cerrone had a reputation for not stepping up in the big moment, but he's never been a champion.
Right.
They talked about that. This was his first pay-per-view event ever.
He says the biggest fight in his career.
So here's what I'm thinking. The lights might have been too bright, Joe.
Now, Joe Rogan was trying not to disagree with the face of ESPN for the entire interview, but had enough of Stephen A.'s lack of sympathy for Donald Cerrone and his overall lack of knowledge of MMA.
Ran for 40 seconds.
I disagree. We learned he rises to the occasion. We learned he could put Cowboy away.
Now, Stephen A. quickly submits to Joe's rebuttal.
This was his return, and it was a pretty significant
I
return.
can stand corrected on that.
Because even though Stephen A. is typically a stubborn person, he realizes that he's out of his element and that Joe Rogan is more knowledgeable in this field. Fans would even leave comments on the video saying, "Joe's smiling at this guy being a clown the whole time." How does Stephen A. Smith keep getting work, especially in MMA? There's so many past fighters who could be there instead and give some actual insight. So things didn't end here. Joe Rogan would later go on his podcast and would make fun of Stephen A. Smith's boxing training.
First of all, someone needs to explain to me what's happening here.
Yeah, well, it looks like a punch to the left.
Look how low he's punching. This guy should not be allowed to talk about fighting.
He would also address the disagreement they had on the Donald Cerrone-Conor McGregor fight.
Look, I don't know jack about baseball. I don't know jack about basketball. I literally don't even know the rules. I don't know when people foul people. I'm not sure why. I don't know what's happening.
Yeah.
I know MMA.